Bandwidth for this podcast is brought to you by Ideate Software. Be sure to check out all of their great Revit applications designed to increase your productivity.
We are recording another BIM Thoughts episode number something 2021. Begin podcast now. Hello, and thank you for joining us. We are joined by Dana DeFilippi. We're also joined by the most interesting man, Carl Storms, and by Luc Wing with Microdesk.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. So, Luc, define yourself.
Defining myself, simply, I'm a sustainability believer.
Okay.
I'm a father. I'm a believer in BIM. And I don't know. I think that's pretty good. And then I like the outdoors and hiking and just a family guy more than anything.
Sustainability. You're the lead guy, huh?
I am not the lead, but I am definitely a part of a nice team.
So tell me about what you do with LEED and green buildings and what the cool stuff is and what we should all be trying to learn about it.
Are you LEED certified, Luc?
No, ma'am. So that's a whole process that I was going down that rabbit hole, but you know how things are in the consulting world. You're jumping around. So I have not been certified. But my current objective is I'm mapping out the similarities between LEED and BREEAM, which is a UK certification, kind of similar, which they also have here in the US too. So we're trying to map out those metrics and then what kind of tools are used to achieve these net zero aspirations, as well as what's involved as like the metrics we're going to be using, and what part of the design phase they come into. So we're really trying to encapsulate sustainability even beyond just the built environment, the carbon from site to source all the way through the life cycle of the project. It's pretty fun stuff.
Yeah, because Microdesk actually does work in London. Are they still doing that through the COVID and all that?
Absolutely. So
That's awesome.
My partner in crime is Shivani Soni, and she's actually located in London. So it's really interesting to get their insights on sustainability. I feel like they're so far ahead of us as far as like mandates and legislation, but we have the technology here more than they do. So it's kind of an interesting perspective.
Yeah, because what is it, the BIM Pyramid out there or something? They have it all mapped out, right?
Yeah, they have a great, everything is mapped out well or documented well. They go by, so we have AIA 2030 and they have REBA, and they have the REBA 2030 challenges. And so their documentation seems to be really clear and understandable, and people tend to adopt it really well. And not to mention it's required. So that helps out a lot when you're a sustainability person.
Yeah, they started working in London after I left Microdesk, of course, right? I love everything about London, England in general, just England in general. I love doing a British accent. I don't want to offend anybody.
You gotta show out.
But actually, I could probably do a whole podcast in a British accent if I wanted to. I do this quite a bit with my friends and my family, just speaking British accent all the time. So I would have loved to travel.
That's not bad.
I certainly don't want to offend.
My partner has a good accent, and with Microdesk, you work with people from all over the world, right?
Yeah, it's great.
We're doing a meeting, and we have people from Scotland and from India and from UK and from just all parts of the world. And so it's really fun to be able to decipher all those accents and have fun with it as well. That's the best part. But I haven't got a trip to the UK yet. That was planned before COVID hit.
Oh, darn COVID.
I know.
Maybe I can get Mike DeLacy to send me with you.
Hey, he probably would take you.
He probably would. I could probably hit him up still, like, hey, just send me over to London.
Guaranteed.
All right, it's on the list.
I think your firm's on his list, so I'm pretty sure he would take you up on that offer.
There you go. I have leverage points.
There you go.
So tell us more about what you do. You talked about sustainability and generative design, lighting design at AU this year, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So that was for a nonprofit for BHI, and that was such a pleasure because we talk about impact and how what our work does, and that project really meant a lot because it really directly affects how these people everyday life works in Sierra Leone, Africa, right? Their sustainability is designed out of necessity. Um, so it was really cool. I got to learn some new tools. I got to do CFD analysis, some flow design, and then my partner Jeffrey, he did the generative design part, and we used all that data combined to inform his generative design process. And so we were trying to optimize the amount of daylighting within the space so we can reduce their energy use, which is ridiculously high because they're off grid and using diesel fuel, right? So optimizing the daylighting, however, but we want to keep in mind the heat gains and as well as the this environment is really hot and humid. So you want to make sure you have a proper airflow. So we had to double check for convection and make sure we're having a passive strategy as well. So that was a really fun project. Really fun. You guys want to know more about the generative design part?
I want to
Yes,
know about everything.
everything. It all, the
Yeah,
programs,
because only the cool kids listen to this
Absolutely.
podcast, and they want to
Absolutely.
know everything so they can be the coolest kid in the office.
Absolutely. Well, it's done with like a bunch of tools, right? And so at Microdesk, I'm pleased to say, even though we're an Autodesk partner, we are tool agnostic, and so I will always try to approach it with the best tool for the job, right? Like I'm not going to force um, CFD analysis on it if it's really a job for sim scale or and so that's the best part is they allow me my creative freedom. So I'll steal a line from my partner, but we uh, we learn the rules well enough so we can break them like an artist, right? That's the whole goal.
So I heard a great saying today, which was, and everybody's heard this who's watched Mythbusters, the difference between science and goofing around is writing it down.
100%.
Yeah,
Right. And so we were gooping around probably for the first couple months, and then we actually got whipped into shape about okay, we need to start our OneNotes and documenting this process and going into firms with an actual laid out path and plan on how we can implement sustainability holistically, opposed to just knocking off small chunks or biting off like the low hanging fruit. Right.
absolutely. So what are the tools that the cool kids are using?
Oh man, there's all kinds of cool stuff out there. So I think my favorite right now is the generative design. There's a lot of possibilities out there.
Uh-huh.
Just
Is that the
just
one
because.
built into Revit or
So
a
yeah,
different
yeah,
one?
we're looking at the one that's built into Revit 2021. Uh,
Okay.
we started with the project refinery back in I think 2019 and 2020, and evolved it. And I think we're really looking forward to that space maker and seeing what comes of that acquisition. So that would be fun. But I think it's just the limit. The limits are, you come at this tool like, oh, there's all this wonderful generative design, and we're gonna do all this great stuff, and it's actually, pretty complex. Where you have to really refine your goals. I was what I found. I don't know if you guys have ever played with it,
I have not.
Dana.
I'm sorry, I haven't. No, I haven't played
No.
with it, and I would love to. Generative design in 2021, in particular, just because it's so user facing and easy to
Hmm.
do. And I
Right.
guess that was going to be my next question is, the types of programs you use because you guys put this presentation out in, I guess that was in November for AU, and so I'm
Hmm.
sure you developed the content much before then. So I don't know whether you used Revit 2021 for that process or other types of generative design tools.
That was fun. So my colleague Jeffrey Tears, he's actually a really really smart guy out of Houston. He was the one that did most of this flexing for me because I was started in Project Refinery, and then unfortunately I got pulled to do more of the CFD and flow design stuff. But we had a big issue with the weather data files within those, so we had to upgrade within the project to 2021 in order to utilize the tool correctly. And the project team was still back in 2020, so we had a little bit of trouble getting that information and writing it back cleanly. Um, but once we got the tools out of Dynamo, I think the main thing is if you know Dynamo, the generative design aspect should come relatively easy, right? It's just knowing your inputs and what your goals are, and you set those, and then the UI takes over, and it's actually a really neat, really interesting tool.
the ability to plug it into Dynamo Player and all of the other things, and just even having the sample content to play around with, I think is just huge in, like I was saying, in the Revit 2021 platform, making it super easy for you to, if nothing else, modify the content that came with the platform.
Absolutely. I've even got a little hacky, and just that platform, the generative design user interface is so much easier to use. It's actually might be a hack around using Dynamo Player even, so you don't have to worry about the buttons and the pathing. It's kind of stored in this cloud environment. It's just pretty nice.
So to get started in generative design, because I haven't done it yet, haven't looked into it yet, so shame on me, but that's okay. Neither have most of the cool kids these days. You have to get your Dynamo script in such a way that it obviously makes design changes for you based
Absolutely.
on sliders or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also need to get it to report what you're interested in knowing about that design.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get those two things to work, which is ultimately the hard part,
Yes.
then you plug that into the generative design and say, okay, here's your sliders. Here's the numbers I'm looking for. Go. And it moves the sliders around until it finds all the numbers.
Pretty much. So as you're building your script, you will designate nodes for certain processes in the generative design, right? So as you're building your script, you can right click on the node and make that a input for your generative design script. So that slider will be an actual variable on your UI. And then some of them you can designate to be open, right? So that will be what it's discovering, and it'll go through however many steps or iterations you set.
Okay.
So it's really, if you know the Dynamo the Dynamo workflow and the scripting portion of it, the generative design aspect is pretty easy to adapt, right? It's just a click of the button and assigning the node.
Yeah, I would think that would be the easy part.
Yeah, absolutely.
The hard part is getting Dynamo to do what you want it to do. I think that's the biggest hurdle to overcome.
Absolutely. Like even using I started off with generative design and refinery using the sample scripts, and they're pretty powerful, and they have a lot of valuable sections in them that you can Frankenstein into something else. So that's a good place to start if you're looking, because they provide most of the standard problems that you're trying to solve within there, like solar orientation or layout of space. They have that already pre-built for you, and you can start to modify it if you need.
Are there any good online training or videos or that someone can get started in that? Where should they go look?
That's a good one. When I was doing the research and all this, it was still really new. We were doing the beta testing, so there wasn't much out there. I'm sure there's a lot more now. I haven't been on a generative design project for probably since AU, so I couldn't tell you the best up-to-date source, but that is definitely the Autodesk forums always.
Yeah.
I think our buddy John Pearson had a pretty good write-up about it, and just have it kind of the basic use. So 60-second Revit. That guy always has good stuff.
Yeah, he's got good stuff.
Oh, always. And he'll bring you to reality pretty quick too, right?
That's his job. That's what he does. But that's good, because he at least tells you, no, you're smoking crack. You can't make that work.
Absolutely. Or he'll break it.
The best one is when you make him pause, because then he has to think, can I do that?
It's rare I get to trick him, but yes.
Yeah, that's a good day when you can make him pause and think.
Absolutely.
Or any of the great experts out there pause and think. Then you think, oh man, I'm smart because he paused.
I triggered something.
I did trigger something. Yeah, that's a good thing.
So it looks like I just did some Googling. You taught 2 classes at AU this year.
Yes, guilty.
Wow, look at you, overachiever.
I know, I got lucky this year. My other colleague, Eve Lynn, she's got a PhD from USC, and we put together that BIM for Sustainability class, and man, she's too smart for her own good. Have you ever worked with her, Dana?
I haven't.
Oh man, she's a smart cookie. Yeah, Dr. Eve Lynn, she really is good at mapping out the metrics in all and Excel and mapping out all the metrics and what's involved in the sustainability. And
Yeah,
she's
tell
actually,
us about that. How do you
yeah.
map out sustainability in 7D?
So what's the you guys have all heard the 7D. I've caught a lot of flack actually for that title on social
No,
media.
I
Okay.
don't know what the 7D is. I've heard of 5 9s.
I've never
Five
heard of
nine.
7D or 5 9s.
Huh.
I haven't heard of the 5 9, but the 7D is just this separate. There's different phases throughout the construction process, right? And so sustainability, there's been this kind of toss up in the air whether sustainability is a sixth dimension or the seventh dimension. But it goes
Mm.
over real basics like 1D is like, your basic outline, and 2D is your CAD, and you're first getting into 3D drawings, and 4D is like the coordination. I might be mixing some of these up actually, but you get the point. So it builds upon it, and um, so 7D gets into, like, I think more of the asset management. So there's that argument between 60 and 70 is sustainability, but then you get into like 8D and 90, which is the asset management and the reuse and recycling of the building and how we go about that, and actually um, repurposing buildings and making use of them instead of demolishing, right? Reducing our carbon.
Hmm.
Is that one of the things you look at in comparing the green versus the lead and on all of those comparisons and how all of this is analyzed across different platforms or countries or codes or certifications, however you want to look at it?
Exactly. It's getting tough and tough. So that's what we're kind of discovering now. It's kind of like there's the umbrella goal as the United Nations sustainability goals, right? And then we have different adopters and different local codes. So it gets more stringent, more stringent. So like LEED is real known in the US and BREEAM is kind of UK. But however, BREEAM does have some interaction up here in North America, as well as LEED is doing some projects in the UK as well. So there's a little bit of overlap, but we start mapping that out, going through all the criterias. What are we looking at? Energy, land use, ecology. Are we talking about uh, wellness, well-being? And they all kind of have different word use or different ways of saying these things, right? So trying to get the common language between them all, understand what the ultimate goal is to reduce and reuse, right? In energy, CO2, and water reduction. So mapping it out and trying to simplify it for clients, I think is the main goal.
Getting clients to do it, I would think, would be the main goal. To
Yes,
agree to do a green building.
absolutely.
I think that would be one of the more difficult parts.
Yeah, it's definitely owner driven. And
Hmm.
if I found some architecture firms that are really well educated, they have a good
Hmm.
time. They have an easier time educating owners and selling that idea, right? So it all comes about spreading awareness and education.
Hmm.
But it's really, the proof is in the pudding. There's, I hate to use that my grandfather's whole term, but it's the ROI is instant because you're investing this early stage analysis and understanding your building's performance and reduction. Why would any owner not want a better performing building that's saving him money? That is maybe attracting higher end occupants, or even net zero or net positive. God forbid we have a building that produces energy, right? So it's really it's a fun job, right, to do sustainability because you feel like Captain Planet a little bit for the day. You have your little do good work, and it feels nice to have a little impact, as small as it is. But it could lead to, ultimately, if we adjust the way we think and build the building environment, could ultimately have a large impact since we're responsible for about 70% of our energy use. So
Hmm.
a lot of room for change.
Well, I think it comes down to when you have those good architecture firms, those design firms that are selling the idea of sustainability, they know who they're talking to on the end. Is it a campus or a university or a hospital that's going to have that building for 100 or more years? So absolutely, it makes sense to save on that long-term energy bill. Or maybe you got the developer that's just looking to flip that building where
Hmm.
spending a little bit up front to save money 20 years down the road doesn't give them any benefits. But maybe when you, like you mentioned, if you have a smart building, you sell it as a smart building that has sustainability tied in, connected to the Internet of Things and what have you, then you're attracting a higher end client. So then the developer, their ears go up because higher end client, more money, we make it in. So there's benefits all around. It's just knowing how to sell the benefit of sustainability to the people that you're working with.
That's a great point, Carl. I mean, it's all about being able to like spread that awareness and educate and know who you're talking to. That's half the battle, and that's where we're finding a lot of people. The number one thing I've heard in meetings is, "Oh, sustainability it's a neat thing to do," and it's just I haven't done my job if I haven't conveyed the return and the value of it to them by the end of that meeting. So that's the gut punch at the end.
I loved what you said there. The fact that if I don't convey the information, it's not you that's failed, it's me because I didn't do my job to convey that. And that's really what, we're trying to do in this industry where we're trying to convey that, the
Oh
knowledge, we're
yeah,
trying to share our knowledge, right? So we need to make sure we're up on what's going on and that we know what's going to benefit the client in their way of seeing the benefit and then give it to them. So yeah, brilliant way to explain that.
thanks, Carl. It's definitely a challenge, but I see it's being more accepted now. I hate to use the word trendy, but it's becoming more cool to be sustainable, right? It's coming back.
When you were doing your session at AU, did you get into any with the sustainability stuff? Did you get into any of the smart buildings or the IoT stuff part of things and how you can use that intelligence? Automatically somebody walks into the room, the lights come on, the lights come off. You turn down the thermostat when nobody's in there. Did that play into the conversation at all?
It did in our early analysis. I believe we covered a little more of that in the our 2019 class when we did the Haiti Center, and they were actually using the building controls and occupancy sensors. And so we really try to drive that home. But it's a nonprofit for BHI, so it's kind of limited scope there. But we're really driving home that point, I think, more in the BIM 70 class with my colleague Eve. She's part of the asset management team. So we have this entire research department at Microdesk now. We go by the COIL, right? So the co-innovation lab. And our whole goal is to co-innovate, co-research, and co-create. And so working with our asset management team and our sustainability team, along with all of our solution specialists that are out there in the field, we're able to get a full holistic picture on how we're able to implement this.
It's the thought of tying it all together. I think that's the part of the thread that kind of I pulled from that. The idea that looking at the facilities at the ends, the asset management, the design at the beginning, that whole sort of, is it 7D, is it 8D, is it 9D? What D we call it doesn't really matter, but the idea that the building is an actual life cycle from when we first think about it all the way through to when we renovate it, we tear it down or repurpose it to something else. But then it starts all over again, and we start back at that design process and work our way through. So really, it's doesn't really matter what we call 7D. Well, once we get past the 3-dimensional, everything else is gravy on top of it, and we try to charge extra for it anyway. So we want to get as many D's in there as we can.
It's a D's a service, right?
That's right.
D is a service.
But he's absolutely right, and that's the best part is if we can flex our BIMRX tools and we can get people drafting faster and connecting their plumbing and fittings or their mechanical systems quicker, and they can now spend more time to do sustainability, then that's great, right? Because it is all connected. The faster and the more time we have to do what we love instead of what we have to do, then we're gonna push the envelope and explore and do better work. And so that aspect of our company that does the drafting and developing of tools like BIMRX and BIMRX Core and BIMRX MEP, I mean those tools are significantly saving people time. So now I can go in and say, hey, well, you have all this free time now, quote unquote free time, but let's start talking about how we can implement sustainability and start making money on this and just having a return on an investment and how this can take your firm to the next level and set you apart. I think a lot of people have that sustainability tab on their webpage, but then you ask them, what are you guys doing? And there's not really an answer there. So that's my favorite part, is to go in and really educate on what it means to do sustainable practices, even if it's starting with doing insight on early injury box modeling, or you're doing generative design and placing skylights and window layouts, right? I mean, it starts somewhere, but it all has an impact down the road.
Well, last year, the firm I work for, LPA, we're a signature of the 2030 commitment, and we were able to surpass the challenge. We did a 70.02 or 70.2 for our buildings, and we did good. We were only one of 16 that met the challenge.
That is amazing. That's a huge feat, and that's what a
Mm-hmm.
lot of firms are having trouble with. They sign up for this challenge, but then they're kind of just left in the middle of the ocean in a little dinghy. They don't know how to do anything or to report or to what they're reporting or what to even look at, right?
Right.
So I'm actually trying to get Microdesk to sign up to the 2030 challenge as a consulting firm, but so we can speak to our clients about ways to achieve 2030 or signing other firms up for 2030. And we're even trying to take that a step further and work with the 2030 districts to really start getting this inclusive, holistic approach, right?
Right. And there's only 10 years left.
Oh gosh, we're running low on time.
Actually, 9 years left.
Yes.
Yeah. This year the target raised to 80%.
Yes, and that's it seems hard, and it's getting harder to do without these major improvements, right? Like 70% was hard, so 80% we're gonna have to really look to renewables now. But solar's been what is it now, the cheapest source of energy in the world?
Right. That it is.
Which, one thing I'm looking at here is you not only presented in 2 classes in 2020, and you just spoke about the class that you spoke in 2019. You also spoke on practical energy analysis in 2018. So you are a long time speaker. No, I'm sorry. In 2018, it was how to meet your 2030 challenge goals with Insight 360. So you're just all over the sustainability platforms and the conferences. I love it. And it looks like you're actually Bill's neighbor over there in New Mexico. So you're pretty close down there to AU, where AU happens down in Vegas.
Oh, Bill, are you in Vegas?
I am in Vegas.
All right. Well, I can't wait to come back and visit you this year if we have a live event.
Oh, I'm sure we might.
That's why I get to see all my buddies.
Right. I miss seeing all my friends.
I know.
Well, and speaking of friends, it looks like in 2019 you spoke with Clark. I love Clark. I did work with Clark.
Clark is my absolute buddy, and I owe almost everything that we've done in the sustainability group to Clark. I was actually on a job site here in New Mexico doing electrical drawings, and Clark stumbled across one of my AU presentations that I did from Decker Paris Sabatini when I worked with John back in the day. So Clark was like, "Hey, you do sustainability. You want to join the team? I think this would be awesome." And everything kind of blew up from there. And now I get to work on sustainability work almost full time. It's a dream come true. So I love Clark.
It's such a small world in our little BIM industry. It's so sad. I feel like every time we end the podcast in some way, shape, or form saying how much we miss each other and we can't wait to see each other in person. I can't believe we've missed you at some of these conferences.
I've ran into Carl a few times with John and Vanessa, and I don't think I've ever ran into you, Dana, which is unfortunate. I think I should have at least had a Microdesk meetup when we were there, which is unfortunate.
I know, especially since that's why I feel like it's such an anomaly. Not many people from Microdesk get that opportunity. You're pretty lucky.
I got very lucky that they allowed me the time to work on that and go, because it's as you guys know, it's a big commitment to put together a decent class, right?
Right, which is why I was saying teaching more than one, in particular in one conference, that's a lot. I know Carl is notorious for that. At this point, it would be weird for him to teach just one class, right? If you see Carl on the docket for just one class, you have to ask him what's wrong with him.
Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do, right?
That's true. Take one for the team.
I mean, I see Carl at Build. What you go to AU in or Build AU in Australia and London. Don't you do all the conferences?
I certainly do my best to try.
Oh man, I love watching your content though. It's always good.
Well, glad to hear that. It's all about getting out there and wearing the pretty little hat.
That's how I recognize you, to be honest.
See, branding. There you go. There's the takeaway.
There is the takeaway.
100%.
Carl, I'm going to give you the final thought today because we're at an Aubin.
Time flies when you're having fun. So the final thought to bring it around but also to end on something completely different. Luke mentioned just briefly in one of his replies the BIMRX product that you guys have at Microdesk. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Just in closing, what exactly that is?
Yeah, and you always hear about all these what they call tools and add-ins, right? But they're trying to brand this, and it's not really a tool, but it's really a what it's basically doing is cutting down your commands. So it's a command and a feature. That's how it's not a tool. There are it's a set of commands and features, and it's shortcutting your button clicks, and it's making you more efficient and super quick. So things like blooming or rolling offsets, things like that are super easy. But it also covers cloud management, file management. Um, if you're using, anything project setup or project manage, it just makes it super easy to manage your and file your file management, your transfer, your parameters. What else is? I mean, there's so much it does. My brain is just over flooding with information right now. But it's a really great tool, and to be testing it out actually in the market, it saves me a ton of headaches and a bunch of butt clicks.
That's the hallmark of a good tool, a good platform, a good resource is the fact that using it in the field, eat your own
Mm-hmm.
dog food, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
I think that's good to hear that you're actually not only promoting it, but you use it. I'm not only a client, I'm a member.
Oh yeah, it'd be silly not to. Just how much time it saves with simple like rolling offsets. Have you guys ever had to model a rolling offset before, or like any slope conduit?
Try not to.
It makes the best of us feel like first day users. I swear. You literally draw two conduits at different level. You have to cut a section, and it takes quite a process. But now with BIMRX, it really allows you to model in 3D. I would say that's the best part. It allows you to fully model immersively in 3D with everything on, and be accurate. That's the most efficient. That's the best part about it. I'll leave it at that.
Wow. Well, Luke, thank you for being on BIM Thoughts today.
Thank you guys for having me.
We
It
all
was a
learned a
pleasure.
bunch of stuff.
I hope.
For those of you in California or Texas, if you want to join a 2030 commitment firm, LPA is looking for people. Tell them BIM Thoughts sent you. Thank you so much for being on. And thank you, our friends, for listening.